A new book lays out the frighteningly fast path to a nuclear Armageddon, saying the whole world could end in as little as 72 minutes. Now, that book is technically a work of fiction, and Armageddon isn't on the top of my worry list. But it does make me think, what things can change in the blink of an eye where you might wish you were somewhere else, because the place where you live might be in the eye of the storm. Today, I'm going to tell you how you can protect yourself and push back against the misconceptions. The story from Politico asks 72 minutes until the end of the world. It's about a book called Nuclear War, a Scenario by Annie Jacobson. And they say that nuclear war would be bad. Everyone knows this, of course. Most people would probably rather not think through the specifics. Annie Jacobson did. She sketched out a global nuclear war with minute-by-minute precision for all the 72 minutes before the first missile launch at the end of the world. The book's already a bestseller. And it goes without saying that the scenario is fictional, but it is a journalistic work and that the scenario was constructed from dozens of interviews and documentations, some of it newly declassified, as a factual grounding to describe what could happen. And you can read the whole article on Politico, talking about North Korean leaders launching interballistic missiles, and the Mad King does something, and then the U.S. sends its ICBMs back, and then Russia gets wind of it, and they send something, and what's happening, and before you know it, everything goes kaboom. Now, we've talked of this before. We've talked about a number of scenarios, because there's a lot of threats out there. There are a lot of black swan events. My solution is there's a geographical solution to every possible problem. And if you read this article, you'll see North Korea, United States, Russia. These are some of the hot spots, maybe some of the places in between. Those are places where you want to be worried. Obviously, if you're in South Korea, you're a bit more worried about North Korea than someone living far away. If you're in Belarus, you're more worried about what happens in Russia. So geographical proximity is an issue. What we've told you before is, hey, here's some places if you're worried about this or anything similar. It could just be a world war. Where can you go? We've talked about far-flung places like Uruguay, like Chile, like Mauritius, like Vanuatu, places that not really near any big superpowers. In many cases have neutrality, in the southern hemisphere, like lots of things that could potentially protect them. And what people say is, well, that's great, but how are you going to get there? And now they'll say it's 72 minutes. That's all you got, 72 minutes. Well, Robert Kiyosaki spoke at Nomad Capitalist Live a couple years ago. He said, where can you be in 3 days? 72 hours, where can you be? If you charter a plane, if you get on a commercial flight, whatever happens, how do you get out of Dodge in 3 days? And I think for many events, hey, that works pretty well. Could be a pandemic, could be a tax increase, could be some, kind of civil unrest. Yeah, as long as you can get out of Dodge, as long as you can pack a go bag, as long as you can get out, passport in hand, second passport in hand, and go somewhere that you can get to, you're probably going to be okay. But what if it's something where you have to react instantly? That could be a war. That could be you're going to be drafted into the war, or you're going to be hurt by the war, or something even as apocalyptic as this nuclear Armageddon. And so when I spoke to Nigel Farage recently, who is speaking at Nomad Capitalist Live again this year, he said in the last couple of years since we spoke, when I saw him walking around at Porto Montenegro looking for opportunities, he said, back then, when I first saw you, I saw this as a plan B. Now I see it more as a plan A. Now, that's how I've lived my entire life overseas, ever since I left the United States many, many years ago, is you want to have a plan A. Now, I'm not here to judge, and Nomad Capitalist as a business helps people create plan A and plan B. If you are living in the United States, for example, or any other country, and you're saying, yeah, having a second passport, let me get somewhere, let me make sure I'm welcomed and celebrated somewhere else if the fur starts flying. Yeah, give me a second passport. Give me a residence permit. Give me a home overseas. Let me diversify my cash. Let me open a trust, bank accounts. I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket, but for now I got to stay here. Or I want to stay here for now. That's a plan B. And we have more clients saying, I not only want plan B, I want C, D, and E, and F. And I think one guy was down to like G or something. So that's fine. Have as many as you can. But what Nigel Farage said was, he's at the point where I'm at, and I've always been at, plan A. So how do you get away from the kaboom in 72 minutes? Well, you're not in the kaboom when it happens. And so I'm not here to say that what I'm doing is going to protect me from nuclear Armageddon. Maybe it will, maybe it won't if it ever comes to that. But what I am saying is I am in places where I don't necessarily have to worry as much what could happen next. I've been an advocate for a long time of smaller, more neutral, more benign countries. Some of those, could be in Europe. And you could argue, hey, Europe, they've had plenty of wars over the years. It's between the US and Russia, whatever. There's plenty of benign, small countries that mind their own business in South America, in Asia, the South Pacific, in the Indian Ocean. There are livable countries in Africa. People go to Rwanda. They say it's one of the cleanest places I've ever been to. People go to Botswana, for example, Namibia, another example. What you're seeing in a more multipolar world is places that are increasingly livable. What I've talked about is, would I live in Malaysia? Would I host an event with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people from all around the world and invite them to come to Malaysia 30 years ago? I'm not sure that I would have done that or that anyone would have come. But now we have the biggest event that we've ever hosted, and it's in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a place that wouldn't have been on your radar just a few decades ago. In my lifetime, you wouldn't have gone there. But now you can. And so for me, the idea of shifting your plan B of just give me the passport, give me the bank accounts, but I'm going to stay here. The kids are in school. I like visiting my grandmother. I like the sandwich shop down the street, whatever your reasons are. To me, going to plan A protects you against whatever could happen in the blink of an eye. There are certain black swan events, certain threats that you'll have that 3 days to respond. And there are certain things where it may be 72 minutes. And again, the response from people is, all right, tough guy, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go in just 72 minutes? We already have to be there. And so what I hope, if you've been watching us for a while here, is you realize there are places you can go that probably are better than where you live. When my father came to Kuala Lumpur, he said, this is probably better than some U.S. cities. Now, there are expats who live further out in Kuala Lumpur, and they say, where I live is not that nice. You need a few $1,000s a month to survive. Okay, get your income up to a few $1,000s so you can come and live in the city center of Kuala Lumpur and have all the consumer conveniences, all the niceties, everything great at very affordable prices. And by the way, a very tax-friendly country. So it's not like you're actually going to save money. You're going to save money in a place like Malaysia, in any of the places we talk about. You're going to save money by living there because it costs less to live there. Now, if you're moving out of Russia, not everything may cost less than Russia. I don't know how many viewers we have in North Korea. But if you're moving out of the United States, or I throw the UK in there perhaps, if you're moving out of there, you're going to spend less pretty much anywhere else. Whether that matters to you or not, that's still more money you can put back into investments or whatever else. You're going to lower your taxes in a lot of the places we're talking about, so more money you can set aside. And basically, you're going to get paid to protect yourself. I am a big believer in plan B, but what I really want to convert people into is the plan A is actually better. I'm not going to tell you to start there, because one thing I think is if you get a bank account, just go and open a bank account in some other country, report it, follow all the laws in your country, but get a bank account and then realize a year later your money's still there. Take some out of the ATM and just realize, hey, this is the same as what I have. And if you're in the US, for example, you don't have any banks in the top 50 safest. You have a few in the top 100, but Singapore has a lot more. Even Canada has a lot more. Switzerland has more. Realize you can be somewhere else. If you take a series of those steps, over time, I think enough people will say, okay, let me try the plan A. That's why our live event is in a place like Kuala Lumpur. Come and see it. Realize, hey, this is pretty good. You're not going to learn that going to some guy's event in Orlando. Okay? And that's why I want to encourage people to get out, open bank accounts, get a second passport, go to that country, even if you don't have to. Come to an event like ours and see that the plan A can be just as good, and that you basically get paid for protecting yourself, and that when the fur starts flying, you don't have to worry about how you are getting out. I have a number of bases around the world, and I can tell you that during pandemics and during many other things, I've traveled between them, and you can do that too. So these are places that you can move to. Iceland, not as easy to move to, but other places, if you're worried about some kind of catastrophe, Mauritius, Argentina is now open. They've always been open, but it's moving in the right direction. Chile's on there. Vanuatu's on there. These are some of the most benign. Uruguay. some of the most benign places that are away from things. If you're already there when something crazy happens, you're going to be better off than someone who's still staying behind. That's what Nigel Farage and I talked about. And I think what I want you to get is a sense of peace, not only the lower taxes, more personal freedom, either a better family life. Some of these places, family life is a much bigger thing. Or if you're single, maybe a better dating life where people aren't at each other's throats. We talked to Christina Kataman about that, and she's coming to Nomad Capitalist Live, where it's just like, wouldn't it be nice to have a dating, life if you're single, where people just like, you want to come together. And so that's what you get if you choose the right place. We help our clients figure out, based on what their criteria are, finance, freedom, and lifestyle, what are their criteria in each of those three? And based on that, here are the options that fit you. Not just, hey, you got to go to El Salvador because everyone's doing it. You got to go to Dubai because everyone's doing it. That's one size fits all. That doesn't work. What are the things that matter to you? What are your fears? Nuclear Armageddon is not on the top of my fear list. I know for a fact Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau are going to jack your taxes up. That I know. I know they're going to take away your privacy. I know that's heading in the wrong direction. I know the culture's going in the wrong direction. You know what? I'll deal with the Armageddon later. If you make your plan B a plan A, there's a lot, but we can tailor that to say, okay, here's how you're solving all the fears that you have, and here's how you're solving your problems. Maybe not perfectly, because no place is perfect. But if you distribute all the different things in your life across multiple countries, and if you have the opportunity to go and live in different countries depending on what's happening, then you're going to be in the driver's seat. And what too many people do is they stay in their country, and they say, when things get bad enough, I'll leave. And it's going to come down to, they're going to be drafted into a war in some cases because maybe the war was talked about before it started. But when things are bad enough, I'll leave. Like, when things are bad enough, you're not going to be allowed to leave. You're not going to be able to leave. And I'm not on the extreme end of they're going to keep you in. But if some stuff happens, they might be like, yeah, like, we need you here. You can't go. Pandemic, not allowed to go. War, not allowed to go. We need you here. I mean, we've seen that from Australia to Ukraine and Russia just in recent years. Can't happen here. Can't happen where you live. Of course it can. And so if you're already somewhere else, this is not about shirking your responsibilities. It's about being in a place where you and your family are safe. You can go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply. We'd be happy to help you with that. I think plan A and loving that and seeing the benefits of it is where you want to move. If you start with a plan B, that's great, and then make incremental steps over a set period of time that you agree to up front. Over the next 5 years, we're going to gradually move towards our plan A, and we can abort at any time, but we're going to gradually take steps forward. That's what I would advise someone who's getting a plan B. When am I getting to plan A? Make it like, I'm going to lose 5 kilos in the gym in the next 90 days. And don't say I'm going to lose weight. You're never going to get there. 5 kilos, 90 days. Do the same thing moving towards your plan B. 5 years, here are the milestones. We can help you do that. You can do that on your own. But that's how I think you get to a position where when bad stuff happens in the blink of an eye, you're ready.